to Life in 3D, and that's DEE with me, Marissa D. And thanks for watching. I just wanted to kind of tell y'all a story today and kind of let y'all know some of the stuff we've been through just as a family on our journey. So thanks for watching. Again, like and subscribe. And here we go. So a lot of y'all have seen my pictures of our family, and baby Kyle is our newest little baby to join our family of 7, now family of 8. Kyle is 2 years old. So we're gonna kind of take it back, and that would be to July 1st of 2019. I remember July 1st, I don't know what day that was, like, but that night, probably around 10 o'clock, we had got a call from Charles' brother saying that they were at the hospital and Kyle was gonna get taken, and that he needed somebody to come pick up Kyle. And so we were like, okay, you know, we're on our way, but we have to find somebody to watch the kids. So Charles' sister, well, one of his sisters lived next door to us at the time, and we were able to get one of her oldest girls to watch our kids while we were on our way to the hospital. Unfortunately, we were living at Saxe at the time, and the hospital was in Dallas. So we probably got, if you're familiar with the area, like to George Bush. And they called us and told us they had already taken him. It was too late. So we really didn't, there was really nothing we could do at that point. So I remember we ended up going to Charles' mom's house that night, and it was like 1 o'clock that night. And I remember us talking to his family and trying to figure out, like, what were we gonna do? And we obviously knew that we were gonna be the ones that would have to take Kyle, and we were the ones in the best situation, the best spot. Even though we weren't really that well off or better off than anybody else, it just kind of happened to fall on us. Keep in mind, we already had 5 little ones at the age of like 2, 4, 7, 8, and 9 at the time. And so our hands were already full. We had just become full-time parents to 5 amazing little kids, and now we were talking about a 6th little baby, and we just were kind of blown away. But it wasn't even really a question or not whether we were gonna do it. So I remember we kind of formed a plan that night. We kind of we're just kind of figuring out what we were gonna do. And so I remember, like, just all the anxiety I had about, like, okay, how do I know what to do? Do I call? Do I do this? Do I do that? Because if you know me, you know I have a really hard issue with, like, letting things fall like how they are supposed to. I kind of want to take control of the situation, and I want to do what I can to make sure everything goes the way that I need it to go, how I need it to go, when, you know, all of that. I'm a control freak, basically. And so I remember a couple days later getting a call from a CPS worker saying, hi, you know, Kyle's parents basically said that y'all were gonna be the ones taking him. What we need to do from here is basically just get your information, ask you a series of questions about your family and your life at home and everything under the sun. They let us know, like, oh, they weren't going to be financially responsible because he's our family. The finance falls all on us, and just a whole bunch of stuff that really should deter anybody from, I don't want to say should deter anybody, but it would deter a lot of people from being a foster parent or being someone that takes in kids, because the stuff that they were saying was it was kind of crazy just to hear. But you know, we continued on. We told them, okay, it's not going to be an issue, like, we're gonna figure it out. So probably we waited a week or so before somebody else called us, which I had an issue with, because it was like my nephew was in foster care. Like, I wanted it then and there. Like, I wanted it to happen, and I wanted him to be home and safe with us. But that was kind of not what they had in mind. So finally, I just kicked my camera. Okay, we're good. That's not really what they had in mind, which was hard for me to realize. And I struggled with this the whole process. So probably a month later, we finally got somebody to come into our home to do a home study. And so when they did the home study, she comes in, she interviews us, she interviews us together individually, wanting to know our home lives, wanting to know just every aspect of everything. She wanted to see our house, which was not much at the time. We lived in a 2-bedroom duplex that was like 800 square feet with 7 of us. So it was like, we knew that was going to be an issue. So we had showed her around. Her concern was, where was Kyle gonna sleep? But we had a pack and play for him, and we had a place for him. It was gonna be cramped, but it was safe. It was home. It was with his family, and we stressed that with her. So she says, okay, everything. Rewind. Probably 4 or 5 hours this woman was in our home. And so we talked to her. We asked how things are. She says, okay. So basically she has to write up a report. She tells us she has 20 whatever days to write up this report, which to me is crazy. That means my nephew's already been in the system for 2 months. 2 months before she even submits this report. That was way too long for me already. But being there's nothing else we could do, we kind of just said, okay, let things go. Okay, we didn't let things go. I called a lot. I called probably at least once a week, if not more, checking on the process, checking on how things were going, how the report was going, how Kyle was, just trying to get every ounce of information I could, which they weren't really giving me a lot to work with. And I know these people were so sick of me, but I didn't really care because I wanted to know. So finally she submits the report. I mean, finally. I'm waiting for us to hear something about literally anything. Weeks probably went by before we heard anything. And I just was calling. I called and called and called. I called so many people. And let me tell you, I called the lady that did the home study. I called a caseworker. I called the god of CPS. Like, I called everybody, and everybody literally directed me to someone else. Nobody had an answer for me. Nobody could tell me anything. Nobody knew crap, basically, which was frustrating. So we still are waiting for the answer from our CPS study. Probably around June or July. No, July he got taken, so somewhere in that couple month time frame, we decided we were going to go ahead and move. We wanted to move to Wiley for the schools, for the kids, and we knew we were going to need a bigger space because, let's be real, there was already 7 of us. We needed something more, and so we moved into the house we're at now. And I remember sitting on the sofa in our living room, and I got a call. This was probably 3 months in, because between each call I feel like it was like a month had gone by before I would really get a call from anybody. A caseworker called me, and she said, you know what, we've decided he's not going to get placed with you. And I didn't really understand why. I, for one, take medication for anxiety. Obviously, y'all can tell from what I've been telling you, like, I have anxiety issues. So she says, you know, we've heard that you're abusing your medication. Y'all don't have the finances. Y'all don't have this. Y'all don't have that. Yada, yada, yada. everything under the sun. We can offer him a stable, loving home, but there was every reason under the sun that this woman told us that we just couldn't have him. And I didn't understand, and she said, well, there's really nothing you can do, and she got off the phone. And I remember crying. Sorry. I remember crying to Charles because I was like, how could they tell us that we're not fit after what he had been through? And so, like, we were his family, and we had fought so hard for him up to this point. And I just remember, like, how much emotion that we both had over what was going on. And we just kind of had come to terms with the fact that there was not going to be anything we could do, but I still was worried about him. And so, sorry. I was still worried about him, and so I still called to try to get answers and to try to get my dog sleep over there. To try to get any information that we could, to see how he was, or, you know, literally anything of that nature. So we'll say September, October. Again, some more months have gone by, and around October, we got this call randomly from a CPS worker, and they said, are y'all ready? And we were like, ready for what? And they were like, Kyle can be in your home in like 2 weeks. And I was like, what? No, what do you mean? Like, I had given all the clothes away. I had given literally the playpen away. I had given everything that we had got for him away. What do you mean? Are we ready? And she's like, well, he's coming in a couple weeks. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. I don't understand. I don't know what's happening. We were told we weren't getting him. And she was like, well, I don't know who gave you that information, but that's false. And I was like, so we weren't denied, or we were denied? Like, I just wasn't understanding. She said, you know, y'all weren't denied, but there is a few things on your home study that you can fix. And I'm like, awesome, because we were told we couldn't get him at all, and there was nothing we could do. And so she says, okay, there's going to be a, I don't really know what they were called, like someone to come back out to our house and look. They'll be in touch with you sometime this week. All right. This is where it starts to get really messed up. So I never got a call from somebody that's supposed to come out. A week went by. I never got a call. The next week, I started making phone calls. I called this person, and she wasn't there. She never answered my phone call ever again. To this day, never heard anything back from her. This supposed caseworker. And so I just started calling random numbers I found on the computer, literally anybody. Like, I didn't know who to reach out to. I had been given all kinds of crazy information, and I didn't know what to do with it. So probably I called a couple like CPS buildings, I guess, and before I found the right one, which was the one in Dallas. And so I called, and I was like telling all these people this information, and that I didn't know what was happening, and they basically were like, we don't know what to tell you, sucks. And that was it. And finally I called in Dallas, and I was like, look, this is the case, this is who I am, this is who these people are, yada 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 yada, you know. And finally I think they just got tired of me calling and me like basically harassing them, that they were like, look, this is a supervisor. So I call, supervisor never answers. A week goes by. I mean, this has been a couple weeks by now that had gone by. I finally am I don't even want to say I was talking to the supervisor. I was literally leaving message after message after message to the supervisor. I was looking up emails, I was looking up Facebooks, I was looking up all kinds of stuff, trying to get a hold of the supervisor before she ever gave me a call back. So finally I get a call back. I'm telling her all the crazy stuff that's happening. This is ridiculous. She tells me she doesn't know who I am. that Kyle is with his foster mother, and that was basically it. And I was like, what? Like, as if I wasn't already confused enough. So I tell her what happened. She tells me she doesn't know who called us. They weren't even there anymore, basically. That caseworker wasn't even working there anymore. So I was confused. So she's like, you know what? We're gonna have to give his case to someone else. Great. That's like what I was thinking. Was like, great. Like, okay, who do I need to call? And she's like, they'll call you. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Who do I need to call? So she's like, well, we don't know who's gonna have the case yet. They'll call you. So again, I never got a call, never was able to reach back out to the supervisor, like never able to get a hold of the supervisor again. So as far as I know, this case is just floating in this CPS office somewhere, and my baby is just stuck. It's just stuck, and there was nothing I could do. I hadn't seen him. I hadn't heard from anything about him. I just, so at this point, like, all my kids are already asking, like, I thought Kyle was coming, what's going on? And I have no answers because I don't know what's going on. Charles doesn't know what's going on. All we know is it's a disaster. Again, I am crying, I'm having a breakdown, I'm not handling it very well. Finally, I was able to get, like, the supervisor's supervisor email address from, like, some digging and calls and random crap that I was doing. So I get the email address, and I am, like, going in on this email. This is a child's life. This is negligence and abuse on its own. Like, you're supposed to be advocating for my child and you're not. Like, just all of this stuff going in on these people, because at this point, like, I'm pissed. Like, this is beyond ridiculous. Like, this is a child's life. Like, you took him from his parents to better his life, but yet you're not doing anything to better his life. Like, and that's when I started realizing, like, how corrupt the system really was. Finally, like, he emails back and he says, or she, whoever it was, this magical CPS entity, however you say it. Anyways, they emailed me back and they were like, so-and-so is your new caseworker. This is her name. This is her email address. She'll call you. And I was like, no. I'll call her. I literally called her that day. She didn't answer. So then it was like the next day, I think, she called me back, and I was like, I just word vomit everything that's going on to this caseworker. And I'm like, what can you do? Like, what can you tell me? What can you do? And she's like, I don't even have his case. I don't know who this kid is. I don't know anything about it. But I'll try to help. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you're joking. You are joking. So she finally, like, digs up some information on him. Turns out his old caseworker never rewrote up, the one that just disappeared, never rewrote up any files on Kyle. She never really did our home study. She never did anything. Like, she literally nothing. So all they had was the information from when Kyle was born and in the system the first time when he was born. He's now 1.5, and they have zero information on him from this time of him being in the system. And I'm just blown away. I am just blown away at the fact that this system that is built to support these kids and to build, a life for these kids has such negligent people working for it. But thankfully, our caseworker was very determined. I don't want to say she was really determined. I was determined. And so I think she kind of got on that board real quick, because I was not allowing anything that had been happening to continue to happen. So she digs up some information, finds out where Kyle's at, finds out, you know, all the information that we needed to know, and says, we don't even have a home study for you, so there's no way he can be in your home in the next couple weeks. And I'm like, okay, this is a nightmare. Like, this is horrible. Okay, so what do we need to do? So she's like, I'll have to come out to your home. I'm like, all right, whatever. She's like, I can't come out this week, it'll have to be next week. I'm like, no, it's going to be this week, like, period, the end. And so she's like, well, I'll see what I can do. I'm like, no, now. So literally, like, the next couple days she came out, we got her out there. She literally was in our house. She had to go through everything because we had moved. So everything had to be redone again. And she interviewed us, same, I mean, at our house for 5 hours. And finally she goes, okay, now I have to go write up the basically report. And I'm like, you're joking, because last time the report took 21 days to write up. And I'm like, how long is it really gonna take? She's like, I don't know, I'll try to hurry up the process. Some weeks went by, nothing really happened. Actually, we did have court. She calls us, lets us know we have to go to court for Kyle. So we show up, and they say, okay. The judge gets up there and he's like, what's gonna happen, you know, where's he gonna go, basically? What's the deal? Where's he gonna go? Who's he gonna live with? Yada yada. Literally, our caseworker stands up there and goes, I'm not sure, because the report on the house, like the guardian's house, is not done. I got up and walked out of the courtroom. I sit outside and I wait till it's ready, and I'm like, okay, what do we need to do to get this ready? And she's like, well, I'm still new and my supervisor has to read it and has to do this and has to do that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So at this point, I'm calling the supervisor. I'm like, what can I get you to do to read it and help her and do this, like, now? And she's like, well, it'll be done this week. Okay. By this point, it's like November. Sometime in November, probably early to mid-November. And so I'm like, this is, like, ridiculous. I'm telling her, like, I want him to be here for Thanksgiving, like, with his family. Please, like, whatever you can do, just do it. And so evidently, like, within the next 2 weeks, because it took them 2 weeks, they finally finished this freaking report. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what the report's done. Did we pass or whatever? She's like, well, it doesn't work like that. We have to send it to his attorney and the guardian malatum and this person and that person and the Holy Ghost. And I'm like, what? Just do what you need to do. Get it over with. So finally they say, okay, look, we've sent it to his attorney. The attorney has to sign off. Awesome. Now, at this point, like, we're talking end of November. And I'm like, all right, like, let's just face it. He's not getting here for Thanksgiving. So let's try to get him here for Christmas. The whole month of December goes by, and I'm telling you, I have presents galore for this kid. Like, my family's got him presents, my friends have got him presents, everybody's got him presents, we've got him presents. Like, there is a huge stack of presents in my house, and I'm like sending the caseworkers pictures. I'm like, how do we get him here? Because we're ready for him. We're done. Like, we're ready, basically. We're just ready. We had gone through July, August, September, October, November, 6 months now where he was supposed to be with us, but he's with someone else. Not to mention, not only did he have Christmas in December, but his birthday was in December, so he was now 2 years old. And we had missed 6 months of his life, which falls completely on CPS. And I was just so distraught at this point. I'm baffled, because at, like, each point I feel like it could have not gotten worse, but it does, and it continues to get worse. So it's now past Christmas, and I'm still waiting for his attorney to call. She should have called. She had all of December to call. She had all of December to go over it, to read it, to call us back, to tell us whatever her decision was, like, and we never heard from her. So again, like, I'm doing some serious stalking on this woman. I'm calling attorney's office, I'm calling her number, I'm emailing, I'm Facebook messaging her. Like, I'm literally doing everything in the book to get a hold of this woman. Probably January, a couple weeks into January. Now we're in 2020. So a couple weeks into January, I get a call. And she's just so nonchalant. And she's like, hey, yeah, I got your papers, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, where have you been? Like, this is not acceptable. This is a child's life. Like, I'm going on my tangent. And she's like, I've been out of town in the Caribbean or whatever the heck she was. Like, I don't care really. And I'm like, okay, well, we've been waiting for like a month or over a month now for you to, like, all you have to do is sign off on these papers. And she's like, well, that's not really the kind of attorney I am. Like, I want to come out and meet y'all and whatever else. So I'm like, are you freaking, like, how? Just how? Because anyways, so I just get over it. I'm like, you know what? Okay, cool. When can you come out? The next week she comes out. We meet her. She's like, well, y'all aren't married and y'all have 79 kids and that's our concern. And I'm like, I have gone through this whole process fighting for this child. Like, if you don't give him to me, I'm gonna lose it. Like, so she's like, I have some stuff to think about. And I'm like, if I haven't proved, like, how much we care about this child already, like, why does it matter that we're not married? Why does it matter that we have 5 other kids? Like, why does any of that matter? We love him and we have a good home for him. That's all that matters, point blank, period. Like, we're his aunt and uncle, we're his family. And so finally, a couple days later, she's like, you know, I do have some concerns, but we're gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you, Jesus. Like, honestly, so much relief, like, came off my chest. Then we get a call again, like, later, the next day probably, and she's like, well, you know what, we don't want to just go ahead and just throw him in. He doesn't know y'all. He doesn't, you know, he probably met y'all when he was first born, and we don't want to just stick him with strangers. And I'm like, okay, so what do you suggest? And so she's like, we'll give you him every weekend so he can ease it in, and y'all can go to visit him at the CPS office. So we're going literally every week, CPS office. We're getting him on weekends. And finally I was like, okay, seriously, like, can we just this is not fair to me. This is not fair to my kids, like, to anybody, really. It's not fair to him. Like, it's so confusing to him at 2 years old to be doing all this back and forth. And while all this is going on, like, my kids are now crying for him and are not understanding where he was and why he wasn't with us. And I just remember Queenie, my 3-year-old, she's like crying like all the time. Where's Kyle? I want Kyle. Where's my baby Kyle? Like, and of course me, like, as a parent, it's like breaking me. Like, I was already struggling, but, like, you know, what could I do? Like, I couldn't answer those questions for her. And I remember being at work and I just, like, was bawling, crying. And I work with my mom, and my mom's like, you know, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. That's the whole point. Like, I don't know what's going on. I can't get him here. I can't do anything. Like, it doesn't matter how much I try, how much I push, how much I love him, how much anything. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. Like, I can't get him here. And so she is now calling because you now her daughter, and her daughter is, like, struggling. So she's now calling these attorneys and these caseworkers, and it's like, what's the deal? Like, so I'm pushing, she's pushing, like, we're going at it, man. And finally, like, the caseworker calls and she's like, look, y'all gotta come to court where they're gonna make the decision. I'm like, cool. We go to court. This is now end of January. And we get there, they're like, cool, you have to testify. I'm like, I'm sorry, we got a what? They're like, yeah, you have to testify on basically his parents. And I'm like, this is a freaking circus. Like, so we do all this crap through the court. What we got to do at the end of the court, we are granted custody. Jesus, that was the longest process ever. And I just got in the car and I just cried some more, because I was like, please, like, let this be over. This is almost over. And literally, I remember as soon as we got in the car, I'm like calling my friends, calling my family, like, he's coming home. I'm just excited. I'm happy. Like, this hell has been going on for too long, 7 months now, and he's coming home finally. And I think I called my caseworker on the way home and I was like, when can he come? And she was like, in the next couple days. So probably another week went by. That put us like into February. Maybe a week and a half. He finally, like, she was like, well, I don't remember what, she was going out of town. She's like, I may have to bring him when I cut. She says, I may have to bring him like once I come back from out of town. And I'm like, no, like, I don't care what time it is. It could be the middle of the night. Bring him like now. So finally she just gets him and she picks him up and she brings him one night at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I just remember like the joy, like the pure joy of like all of this being over and him being home. Like, my kids are happy, we're happy, like the hell is over with. And I'm just, you know, don't get me wrong, some months have gone by, we've had him, things have been good. But that process that we went through has really messed me up, because it really, like, it just, I'm really at a loss for words, honestly. Like I said earlier in the video, a system that is designed to help these children is failing. And y'all heard me talk about how much I pushed for him. Imagine if I wasn't advocating for him, or if I wasn't pushing for him, or I wasn't there every step of the way to turn around and check somebody or call or, you know, harass somebody basically. Like, what about all these other kids that don't have family or that don't have somebody in their corner? CPS is supposed to be that for them. They're supposed to be those people in their corner. And a lot of times they're not. And I now understand like how it's so easy for kids to get lost in this system that's designed to help them, but fails them constantly. And now, I mean, since then, I mean, like I said, we've had him for several months now and things have been good, but it's still, we still have things that we're dealing with CPS that it's just a crap show. And I don't want to sit here and say that all caseworkers are bad, or all, you know, everything about CPS is bad, because there is a lot of times that CPS does come through and it, you know, does save these kids' lives, but there's so many times that they don't come through when they're supposed to. And it has just really made me think, like, what can I do to change the system, and where do I even start? Where do you start with something like that? And so this is kind of my starting point, is telling my story about what happened, and just kind of letting people know, like, you have to be the advocate for the kids in the system, because no one else is going to be. So my advice would be, stay on your caseworker, get all their information, get your their like higher ups information, like get all information you could possibly get, and just stay on them, because they are busy. There is so much going on in the world, there is so much crap that they're dealing with, but that would just be my advice. And just think about it next time you come across the thought of CPS, or the next time you come across the foster care system, or anything of that nature, just keep this in the back of your mind, and just think, what can we do to make a difference? Thanks. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Again, like and subscribe, and please share my video. I would love for this video, more importantly, like than most of my other videos, to get out there, because I do believe it is an important for people to share. So like I said, like and subscribe, and keep watching for more of our journey. Yeah, thanks. Life in 3D, and that's DEE with me, Marissa D. Bye.